What is going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, and later on tonight, the semi-finals for the AFL 2025 season kick off. So it is time for us to get our tips in, and we are getting two fantastic games of football. 4 teams vying to keep their finals series alive. 2 teams will bow out after this weekend, and there is potential to create some absolutely smacking preliminary finals. This finals structure, this final series, as a neutral supporter, has me excited so much because the rivalries we can see play out are absolutely phenomenal, especially this coming weekend, because the first time in AFL history we are getting a Q clash in a semi-final. Absolutely huge. We could see the Gold Coast move on to take on Collingwood in a preliminary final, and we all saw what the Gold Coast did to Collingwood last time they went head-to-head. We have potential to see Hawthorn go head-to-head with Geelong in a preliminary final. That rivalry cooks enough without having the possibility of the winner going on to a grand final appearance on the line. This is huge. This weekend is going to be great. Next weekend is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And the grand final, whoever lands there from this point, we are guaranteed to be given an absolute cinematic experience, because we still have 6 teams vying for those spots, and all 6 teams bring something into the fold that is going to excite everybody. Last weekend, I absolutely bombed out. Tipped 1 out of 4. The only correct tip I made was tipping Collingwood to defeat Adelaide, which I had a feeling that was going to happen just based on the last time they played each other. Having 71 inside 50s against Adelaide, who were touted this year as the best defensive unit in the competition, I knew if the weather conditions held up, Collingwood would be good enough to get the job done. However, we did go on to back Brisbane to defeat Geelong, GWS to defeat Hawthorn, and we tipped Fremantle to defeat the Gold Coast. And GWS and Fremantle were the first 2 teams to exit the 2025 final series. But we move on to the semis that kick off later tonight, the first of which is absolutely huge. Adelaide hosting Hawthorn at Adelaide Oval. We have potential here to see Adelaide, who finished the minor premiers, go out in back-to-back sets, which would be absolutely astounding to see that happen, just given the brand of football they've been playing leading up until this point in time. I don't know whether they had a full head of steam going into that first final against Collingwood. Maybe they got a little bit ahead of themselves, but they weren't playing the usual brand that we're used to seeing Adelaide play. They were bombing it inside 50. Darcy Moore had 13 possessions for that game. All 13 were intercept possessions. He absolutely chopped up that forward half. And if they do this against Hawthorn, they're going to have the exact same outcome. You're going to have Tom Barrass, you're going to have Josh Battle, you're going to have James Sicily, you're going to have Josh Weddle, these type of players intercepting the ball more often than not. And then you've got the likes of Jarman Impey, Carl Amon being able to slingshot off of that halfback line and set up that forward press. They need to be well drilled here, because this is a defensive unit that can tear up Adelaide's forward half. However, I feel Adelaide's back half should absolutely monster Hawthorn's forward half. Jack Gunston and Mabior Chol, when you've got the likes of Mark Keane and you've got Josh Worrell, you've got Max McElhaney maybe in that mix as well. I believe Hawthorn have brought in Mitch Lewis for this game. Kel Shadir going down with an injury. They bring Mitch Lewis in, so they've now got a 3-pronged tall attack. If it comes to shove, is there going to be too tall a forward line for Hawthorn to handle? I don't know whether the likes of Jack Ginnivan, Nick Watson are going to be enough to be those crumbing kind of forwards coming through for the ground ball. Whereas for Adelaide, they have brought Josh Rochelle back in, who adds a dynamic to that forward line that I feel was lacking last week against Collingwood. They have Tex Walker, they've got Riley Thilthorpe, they've got Darcy Fogarty, but if you shut those avenues down, the next tier didn't stand up last week. Ben Keys had a very, quiet game to his standard. No Josh Rochelle. But I feel with those players in the mix this week, they have potential to turn the tide. A Ben Keys can kick 3 goals and have 20 possessions. Josh Rochelle can have 15 to 20 possessions and kick 3 or 4 goals. So this is a game that I think Adelaide can find some ascendancy back in their game, but Hawthorn take a lot out of that win against GWS last week. They were 42 points up found themselves down at the start of the fourth quarter, but managed to come home with a 4-goal win. And with adding Mitch Lewis into that forward half, adds a little bit of dynamic for them as well. So when looking at this game, I've turned attention to the 2 times they've faced each other this year. Now, Adelaide and Hawthorn and Gold Coast and Brisbane have both faced each other twice this season. So we kind of get a little bit of an indication as to how they performed earlier in the year and who we can kind of turn our attention to. Back in round 14, Hawthorn hosted Adelaide down in Tasmania and won 47-44. But this was a very scrappy game of football, and it was very inaccurate as well, because Hawthorn kicked the 6 goals 11, Adelaide went on to kick the 5 goals 14. And when you have a look at the players who could have stood up tall, Taylor Walker doesn't kick a goal, only kicks 3 behinds. Riley Thilthorpe doesn't kick a goal, only kicks 3 behinds. Jack Gunston kicked 2-3. Josh Rochelle only kicked 2 behinds. Dylan Moore only kicked 1 behind. Lloyd Meek, only kicked 1 behind. Ben Keys kicked 2 goals 1. Darcy Fogarty and Jordan Dawson only kicked 1 behind. So these are players that could have, and this could have been a game that really could have blown up, because if Tex Walker and Riley Thilthorpe alone kick straight, they win this game by 5 goals. So hard to really get a marker on that game. But then they played each other again in round 21, which was only a few weeks ago, and Adelaide defeated them 101-87 in a game where, again, they were both inaccurate. Adelaide kicked 11 behinds, Hawthorn kicked 9 behinds. And turning attention to that game again, Nick Watson kicked 3 behinds. Ben Keys only kicked 2 behinds. Taylor Walker and Riley Thilthorpe turned it around this time. Taylor Walker kicked 3 goals, Riley Thilthorpe kicked 4 goals. So again, when they turn it up, they absolutely monstered this lineup. However, I don't know how we can read into this game, because Adelaide came into the final series with a full head of steam, as I said, the best team in the comp for the second half of the year. Hawthorn just found a way to out-tsunami the Orange Tsunami, and when they were able to turn the ball over, they had loose units all around the field that they were just able to get uncontested possession to and just move the ball on. It's a tough one, this one, because the rivalry and the wanting to see that rivalry in that prelim between Hawthorn and Geelong wants me to tip Hawthorn here. But I feel there is enough evidence looking at both times these two teams went head-to-head to show that when Adelaide are at their best, they're very hard to beat. So I am going to back Adelaide tonight, and I'm going to back them by 22 points. They're going to win. They're going to move on to a prelim against Geelong next week, which sets up a great clash, because I feel that is one of the best forward lines in the competition going head-to-head with one of the best back lines in the competition, and that in itself provides a great matchup. Tomorrow we see the first finals Q clash go down, Brisbane against the Gold Coast. And while momentarily we're going to check out and see how they fared when they went head-to-head both times this year, Gold Coast is still very much an unknown commodity when it comes to finals, because we don't know. We've only seen them play one, and they won that, and it was only in the dying moments of that game that they secured the win. But still, to go to Fremantle, first final, play in front of 57,000 supporters, which is the biggest supporter base that they have ever played in front of in 15 years, to come away with that win gives you a newfound belief in yourself. That gives you all the momentum in the world. And this Brisbane lineup is running without Lachie Neale. Now, okay, Lachie Neale might not have had the best year this year, but that is still a dual Brownlow medalist who is synonymous with playing in big games like this. He is a player that stands tall in the clutch moments. Losing him leaves a rather big hole in that midfield to me. We still have Josh Dunkley. We still have Hugh McCluggage. We still have Will Ashcroft. Levi Ashcroft probably is going to play some more midfield minutes than he expected to play. Cam Rayner might even have to go through that midfield mix. But then you've got the Gold Coast. And you've got Jared Witts, who has come into his own this year, coming up against Oscar McInerney. I feel he's going to absolutely monster Big O. Noah Anderson will probably get the clamps from Josh Dunkley. But that just means the likes of Matt Rao, Touk Miller, these other players can get off the chain. This is a very, very close. This is going to be my game of the round to watch, because Gold Coast can very much win this game. They can absolutely win this game. When looking at the defenses versus the forward lines, I feel the Gold Coast can really capitalise here. I feel they have a better defensive structure versus Brisbane's forward structure, especially with no Eric Hipwood. Going to be very, very, very good game. I can feel it deep in my loins. Turning attention to the 2 times these guys have played this year. The first time was back in round 8. Was played at the Gabba. And it was Brisbane winning 66-49. 17 points in a very inaccurate game. Brisbane kicked the 12 behinds. And this was a game that for a vast majority of the first half was an absolute arm wrestle. Brisbane just ran away with it in the late game. Then they played each other again at People's First. And the Gold Coast won by 66 points. Absolutely huge win. Now, obviously, People's First is different to the Gabba. And when we have a look, this was a team that they beat by 66. And yet Lachie Neale played in this game and had 36 disposals of his own. Now, you take that out of the equation. How are Brisbane going to fare without somebody getting those 30 touches, getting those clearances, getting those score involvements? I'm probably... Oh, this is tough. The biggest thing in play here, even though Brisbane go into this game, obviously with more finals experience and more experienced heads collectively, they have not had the Gabba act as a fortress for them this year. This has been a ground where, more often than not, they have lost. And Brisbane would have a chip on their shoulder because they lost to Geelong last week. And they know that they lose this game, their back-to-back run and to, defend the premiership they won last year by backing it up with another is well and truly off the cards. I feel Gold Coast come into this game with nothing to lose. Everything to gain. The fact that they made finals is history-making enough. The fact that they won their first final is history-making enough. Everything from this point on is just a cherry on top of the pie. So they're going to roll the dice and they're going to give everything they've got. I'm backing Gold Coast to win this game. And stupidly enough, that presents opportunity for Gold Coast to defeat Collingwood next week in a prelim to go on to the grand final. And this is coming from someone who's still sour grapes about Damien Hardwick and how shit went down with Richmond when he left. But I think Gold Coast get the job done against Brisbane here. Brisbane and Hawthorn, for me, are going to be the 2 teams to bow out. Gold Coast are going to win this game by 27 points. I think Ben King is going to kick 4. I think Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson are going to combine for 50-plus disposals. It's going to be huge. I think Matt Rowell lays 10 tackles, and I'm going to say Noah Anderson has... we're going to say 10 clearances. Let's throw some numbers around. But that's it for this video. I'm backing Adelaide tonight. I'm backing Gold Coast tomorrow, which next week will set up the prelims of Collingwood versus the Gold Coast and Geelong versus Adelaide. Huge. Huge. I know, maybe I'm being a little bit stupid, but that's just how I feel things are going to play out. Do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I am very keen to get tucked into this weekend of football. I hope you guys are as well. Do leave a like on the video. Do hit that subscribe button if you want to get on board the community we are building here. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. If your team is playing this weekend, good luck to you. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.